Good evening. I am very pleased to welcome you for this meeting entitled I Consent, How Digital Business is Making Money with Your Data. I will start presenting myself and then I will introduce our discussion. Okay, so I am Marie-France Vernier, Associate Professor at ESDES Business School, Director of Studies for the Master Program, and I also Head of Program for the Master Digital Law and Management at ESDES Business School. And this evening, we will speak about the jobs one can find with this specialization. Why, as users, when you see notifications saying that this website uses cookies, most of the time you just click on yes. You consent while you know that cookies are just bits of information that are stored in your browser when you visit a website. But is that really a problem? What is behind this simple click you achieve on a daily basis? And why and how your data are used by companies? What are the regulation on legal aspect? What are the risks for you, but also for the companies? All these questions are part of an emerging profession. Together, we will discover an emerging professor working on the issue of this century. For this discussion, we have 4 experts, and let's begin with my first question to Sylvain Chentob. And Sylvain Chentob, good evening. You're working as consultant at DPO Consulting Sud-Est in Lyon.
Yes.
And I will start with you because my first question is to the following. Personal data. Am I concerned or not by this data?
Yeah, thank you for this introduction. Let me just introduce myself. Yes, my name is Sylvain Chentob. I'm working for DPO Consulting, which is specialized in privacy and more broadly on GDPR compliance. First of all, the first topic we have to address is what is personal data. Personal data, there is a very broad definition of personal data in the GDPR. GDPR is General Data Regulation, Protection Regulation, sorry. So we call it RGPD in French. And this new regulation, which is a common law frame to address these privacy topics, defines the personal data as any kind of data that can that identify a person or can identify a person. So let's take a very easy example. If you have, I don't know, brown hair, you just tall as a regular person, I cannot identify you. But if you have just a single data that is unique, you're going to be identified pretty easily in the data set. So every day and every minute, we are collecting a large amount of personal data. So each time you use any kind of digital device, you have to log, and you have a lot of marketing and technical aspects that is tracking you all the time. So that's what we're gonna discuss, because we have to defend one of our main rights, which is the rights for privacy. So this is a real topic, how we can have a minimum level of privacy regarding all these new tools that have been offered to you. Let's take this smartphone. First iPhone is 2007. So now it's only 14 years we got this new kind of tool that is mainly based on the big business of collecting and generating revenue coming from personal data.
From my data.
From your data.
To make money.
Yes.
My private data. When I go on the website, I just say yes to cookies, and then what happens?
First of all, yes, you can say yes, but now you can also say no. So you can refuse cookies. Just to make a very, very quick break on this cookie. Cookie is just a small file that is on your computer. When the World Wide Web have been developed, there were no cookies. So for Netscape, in order to be able to add a product on the cart, in order to buy a product, you need to record what happened between you and the server. If you don't, you cannot remember that is you want to buy anything on the website. So first of all, the cookie was designed to help the emergence of the new e-commerce economy.
Okay, you mean just to recognize me?
Yes.
On the website, they will know it's me. I came yesterday and I wanted to buy some things.
First of all, it was just to have a session and just to record that you put this product on a cart and you want to buy this product. And after that, a big economy emerged, which is the economy of the cookies. And it's not first-party cookies, but also third-party cookies, which means that if you connect to Amazon gonna put its cookie, but gonna also put other third-party cookies on your browser, which means that you will have the ability to profile people. Because if you are coming from, I don't know, a CNN website and you wanted to buy this kind of very expensive products, and after you arrive to Amazon gonna collect and engineer your profile, your online profile.
Okay, so they know me even if I don't. I'm not aware of that, but they know me more than I do myself.
Probably.
Okay, but what's finally, is that annoying?
It could be very annoying. You all heard about Cambridge Analytica scandal. We won't do the whole story of Cambridge Analytica because it's a long story, but I'm sure you've seen documentary on Netflix, so you have a large amount of information available for you if you want to go deeper in this Cambridge Analytica. But one part of Cambridge Analytica is the way you can track people and a way you can understand pretty precisely what are the psychological triggers from a person, from a data set. So every people that have been concerned about this scandal had about 5,000 data points linked to a person. If I have these data sets collected with a cookie, collected with surveys, collected with a lot of technical and digital products, you will know exactly how you interact and what are the triggers that I can use to change your mind.
Okay.
So it can go very deep in the psychological aspects. It means that I will know that if I send you this kind of advertisement, you're going to react of this kind. So I can change your mindset because I know you better than even you know.
Okay, so I will give the floor now to Audric Mazietti, who is Head of Digital Marketing at ESDES Business School. He has a PhD in psychology, and you're also expert in digital ethics. But before I give you the floor, I wanted to say that we have a chat. So if you have any questions, any comments to do, you just write it on the chat, and then I will share your question with our expert tonight. Okay, so Audric, can you tell me how social networks are working? What are the consequences of these social networks and our mind?
Well, the first thing is that social networks are free. Well, you believe they are free, but they are not. You may know the quote, if it's free, it's because you are the product. And when you are on these social networks, you're implicitly selling your personal data. You're sharing your life, you're liking others' content, you're liking events, you're telling what you do, what you like, what you don't like. And all this data is collected by many companies so that they can know you very well, as you said before. And they can present content to you that they think will work with you. This is the famous personalized content tab that you can find on Facebook, for instance. everybody thinks that this is content that is presented because you want to see it. But in fact, this is content that is presented because Facebook, for instance, thinks it will work with you. So they are showing to you what they want you to see, in fact.
Okay. You mean they know my profile, they know my habits, they know my friends, they know that I often, for instance, talking about chocolate. So they will present to me some specific things. And okay, so it means that they design what I'm seeing. They do the decor.
We all have been on the internet looking for some brands, so for instance for shoes, and opening Facebook just after and see the exact ad of that brand. So they collect the data and they instantly send the information that they want us to see. So this is something that helps them to sell more, but this can be more dangerous because it also helps them to manipulate.
What do you mean manipulate?
This is the scandal we were referring to just before the Cambridge Analytica scandal. These companies are collecting a lot of data. They know what we like. They also know what we don't like. And they send specific information to slightly change our mind. For instance, Facebook collected about 87 million people's data during this scandal and sent specific information to people who disliked Donald Trump, for instance, showing that positive things about Donald Trump. And they try to manipulate the people's opinion, showing only a part of the information. And this can be more dangerous because this is the beginning of what we call fake news. Well, the fake news phenomenon is not a new phenomenon. 3,000 years ago, Sun Tzu was using it in war. But the problem is that with the internet now, it's growing and spreading faster. So we can manipulate and present just a part of the information to manipulate the people's opinion.
Okay. And so you mean they are trying to manipulate us? So you're talking about our brain, the way we are thinking, the way we are acting?
Yes.
Just to interact with you, yes, you know, what is the psychological profile you have, because some people just are emotional, more are rational, so you're going to use the right argument for the right person at the right moment, and this is micro-targeting. Okay. And so this is a real change on the way you do politics. It did not start with Cambridge Analytica, it started much earlier, as you know, but the way that before you're going to send before this social network and internet business, you have to do advertisement for everybody. So, and most of the people you're going to send or display advertisement won't change their mind. They are voting all the time for the same party, left, right, I don't know. But you have just a small amount of people in some county in the US that are doing the election. So you don't have to target 3,000 million people, you just have to target 1 million people. So you have a much higher budget in order to push advertisement, fake news, and change the mind, knowing how to trigger the person. So if this person is just, I don't know. And one more thing is just you cannot imagine how much amount of data they are collecting on the social networks. It's also the time you spend on each video. Why did you slide? How did you slide? How many touch you have your screen? How many times you open it? Where have you been? Etc. etc. I won't have enough time to describe all the data.
So when you were talking about social networks, in a way, when you are, since they follow us and they manipulate us, finally it can be like a drug. They can manipulate us and make us acting like they want.
If you look into the brain, it's a drug. The circuit that's activated when you are on a social network is the reward circuit, and this is the same circuit that is activated when you are using drugs, and even in sexual behavior. This is the same circuit. And this is very important for social networks to activate this circuit, because if they want to have a lot of data, they have to get the users using the social networks. So they have developed specific mechanism to have the users on the page. The first is the like, the famous like. Mm-hmm. You can like others' content, others can like your content. This is a very psychological mechanism linked with self-esteem. So you depend on that mechanism. A few years ago, Instagram tried to remove the like button from their platform, and 2 months just after they got the like back, because it's how it works. They also developed what we call the infinite scroll. This is a simple mechanism, in fact. You have your wall with the information, you scroll the information, and at a time you've seen everything. With the infinite scroll, you've never seen anything. So there is more information, so that you keep on scrolling and scrolling for a large amount of time. And some studies have shown that this scrolling mechanism becomes a reflex, so that you are scrolling even if you are aware that there's nothing new and nothing interesting on the screen. So it's really printed into your brain, in fact. It's a trap.
When you start, you never stop.
You never stop. This is the goal of that mechanism. And if you're not using into an addiction, they have developed something that's called the notification, that will just interrupt you and what you are doing to get you back into the network. And to see how it works and how it's very powerful, just try to cut the notifications of your mobile phones for 1 week, and you'll see that you'll never come back to the social networks. So they use these 3 mechanisms to create an addiction and to get the users always using the social networks, and by this way they can collect as much data as they want.
Okay. So thank you very much. So we see about what is happening concerning us. But now the question for us is, what about the company? How personal data became a major issue for companies? Because when I listen to you, I mean, they are making business out of our data, but all companies are also concerned by this private data going on the website. So now we will talk to Caroline Peloso, first of all, who is with us tonight. So can you open your screen, Caroline, in order that we see you? Hello, good evening, Caroline.
Good evening.
Okay, thank you for being there. Okay, I will start presenting you, and then I will ask you my question. Yes. So you're a faculty member at Law Faculty. You're specialized in European law, and you're head of the program Digital Law and Management for the Faculty of Law. So we are working together, Caroline and I, for this program. So my question to Caroline, or Caroline, I don't know. Yes, my question is about how personal data became a major issue for companies. And specifically, can you explain to us what does it mean, the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR compliance for companies?
Yes, thank you, Marie-France, for your kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with you, even if I'm connected online. And so I will react on your question concern the emergence of GDPR compliance from a legal perspective, in order to point out in the next few minutes the legal risk and sanction that they may result from the non-respect of this compliance duty by the companies. So first, I will precise that with the term compliance, we designate all the internal system implemented by the company, which make it possible to ensure the conformity of the behaviors of the company with the legal and ethical standards which are applicable to it. And this is a transformation of the life of the company that has been implemented in particular with regard to the right to personal data in order to meet the challenges imposed by the new data economy. So since the General Data Protection Regulation, which we refer to GDPR, this text entered into the force in 2018, and who specify how personal data should be lawfully possessed, including how it's collected, used, protected, and interact. European personal data law has been influenced by the mechanism and the philosophy that characterize compliance. So the GDPR is a privacy and security law, and its introduction marks a major change in favor of a logic of responsibility on the part of economics operators, who are now subject to compliance obligation, and they are required to report on the measure adopted. So nowadays, training specifically in legal data management tools offer an interesting and highly actual perspective due to the fact that even it is an EU legislation, the GDPR imposes obligation onto organization and company anywhere, so long as they target or collect data related to people in the EU. So if company possess the personal data of your citizens or residents, or you offer God's service to such people, then the GDPR applies to you, even if you are not in the EU. So this is our first important legal risk for the companies. And secondly, the consequence is that the GDPR will also provide fines against those who violate its privacy and security standards, with penalty reaching into the tens of millions of euros and until 4% of global revenue of the company, and open also the right to seek compensation for damages. I would like to conclude this brief speech on the GDPR by underlining some points that are very important to have in mind. First is the fact that the GDPR is an instrument that aims to facilitate the free flow of data within the single market, but at the same time intended to ensure a high level protection of the collected data, and also to consider the complex environment in which the GDPR works, because given the fluidity and the rapid evolution of data and business model, this lead the EU regulator could no longer assume alone the burden of this continuous supervision, which is transferred to the operator responsible for the processing of data, who is required to comply with the regulation framework. So these 2 points lead to the conclusion of my speech, that concern that the GDPR compliance impose the responsibility of the company, that they are required then to put in place technical but also organizational and operational measures to ensure compliance of data processing with the regulation. And in this context, we have the fundamental role of the data protection officer, the DPO, that advise organization on complying with these obligations. And he has a function located at the heart of the GDPR compliance and become a strategic player in the company, in the different department and sector of the enterprise, because he is the person in charge of the compliance of the company and in charge to know all the text relating to the protection of personal data. These are some elements that I give to you in order to answer to your question, and thank you. I give you the floor.
Okay, Thank you very much, Caroline. You stay with us in order, if we have any question coming from the audience, since we have opened the chat, if you have any question, you can write down your question and then I will share it here with our experts. So you can turn on your camera, turn off your camera, and then I call you back if there is any question. Thank you very much, Caroline. Then I will go and give the floor to Sylvain Chemtom, our data protection officer. She said there is a responsibility for companies and that the DPO is at the heart of the compliance for the companies. What does it mean?
It means that this new role, this new job that does not exist before 2018, May 2018, which has been the date on which GDPR apply everywhere in Europe. This is a new job. This job is just incredibly interesting. Why? Because you have to combine legal, technical, marketing, everybody real a much greater amount of data, greater as a risk. So for each company, now if you want to do put a marketing tool online, it's going to be based on personal data. If you want to have IoT on your industry, if you want to deploy IoT, there are privacy issues. If you want, I don't know, have an application available on your cell phone, you're going to have a GDPR issue. So this is really a new job, and this job, we don't know how to put it, which is, it's not really on the legal side, because it's not only addressing legal aspects. It's not totally in the technical side, because of course you have to design your product we call with regard with privacy. We call it privacy by design. So each time you want to produce a new tool, each time you want to produce a new software, a new website, a new, I don't know, a new application, you will have to rely on your DPO in order to design this new function, this new tool, to design it in regard with these new regulations. And last word for this DPO is you have to report as the highest level of its organizations. It means that before the GDPR in France, we had what we call Loi Informatique et Liberté. And on the Loi Informatique et Liberté, you had someone called Correspondant Informatique et Liberté. I cannot translate it because I don't know the translation. So this guy had to inform the authorities that you're going to perform a process which collects data, and you had to do this administrative work. And with the GDPR, we rely on a concept which is accountability, which means that you have to put in place all the technical legal measures that combines, demonstrates that the organizations complies with the GDPR legal framework, which means that coming from the old Correspondant Informatique Liberté and becoming a DPO is a totally new job. It's a job that and when you report at the highest level of the organizations, that means that you have the ear of the boss. And each time that you are now doing business, you have marketing, you have online, you have IoT, you have artificial intelligence. And another aspect that could be interesting for your students and your audience, it's also GDPR, a way to explain how you collect and what you do with the personal data. And of course, when you rely on IT system based on algorithm that can decide where you go, on which university you go when you have 70 years old in France, you pass your bac and you're gonna log on a system. Why have you been accepted to this university and this other university? You don't know. So you can use this GDPR tool in order to ask that someone so the people that design this system, explain you how the algorithm on which criteria have been designed, why you've been selected to go to Sciences Po and not this other university. I mean that sometimes it's a big subject, but subject that is everywhere. Everywhere you're collecting data, every time and it could impact deeply your life. That's why it's also a tool to better understand the system, better understand what is a cookie, better understand how, so if you want to consent, let's go back to this consent. To consent, you have to know. If I don't know what I'm consenting for, I will say I agree because I'm annoyed by policy that are 20 page long. So you have to be able to speak to the people and use a language understandable by the people, and much more if you go to the children, because you can have the concept.
It means that as a DPO, you're working with all departments of the company.
Yeah.
You're like a project manager.
You like, I don't know the English translation, the chef d'orchestre, as said the CNIL, how do you say chef d'orchestre?
The conductor.
The conductor, you're a conductor. So you are not responsible in a term of, you are not accountable, but you have to put in place every measures and report these measures and evaluate all the times the risks that can be taken by the data control, because this is very important subject on the GDPR data controller, which means this is a company. It could be your mayor, it could be your CEO, it could be every people that decides to put in place a new system that collects and combine the data,
Okay.
personal data.
Okay, so
You just you're a whistleblower sometimes. You just saying, oh, be careful, there are risks. So put that in place. But you also have in charge the way you put in place all these technical aspects.
okay, so in a way you have a global vision of the company. You're not staying in your office working alone. You're working with everybody in the company. So it's very interesting. I mean, you see all aspects, every part of the production, of the marketing, of the research and development, finance, human resources. You all of them.
For sure, in every department you have personal data. Even in production, in industry, you are in the art of all these new tools, all these marketing automation tools, all these sales automation tools, all these new networks that you are putting in place. If you want to design a new website, you have you have a voice. And you have an opinion to raise. So this is your subject, but this subject is so everywhere that you are in all new projects.
So it means that you have to make people following you. You have to convince. Maybe it's not always easy to convince.
This is the main point. Awareness, culture, this is the main point for the DPO. Because when you are talking about privacy, much of the time, other people say, I've got nothing to hide. But this is not the question. If you are for the freedom of speech, you don't have to be racist. You don't have to be negationist. It means that even if you don't have anything to hide, privacy is still a right that you have. And one day maybe you will have some part of you that you want to keep for you. So this is really important. So what I mean by that is that culture and awareness, you have to always explain what is personal data, because of course it's everywhere, but you don't see it. You don't see the cookie. You don't see the tracker. You don't see why how the system are tracking you. So you have a lot of things to explain in order to make people understand that if I take this kind of information, there is a risk for the person, and you have to put security measures in place.
Okay, thank you. So now we go on with our last issue about data privacy and how to protect your data and the data of your company. So I will go on with Sylvain. or DPO.
Yeah.
And then we listen to your comment just for the end. I'm sorry. So my first question to you is, and how and why to protect your data and the data of your company?
First of all, what is the asset of your company? Mm-hmm. Most of the company, the asset is the customers, the way they interact with people, their brands, and of course the regular customers. So you have to protect what is your goal. This is the way you have interacted with people, you have selling products. And of course, you have plenty of possibility to track your customers. But you want also seduce new customers. Mm-hmm. That's why you're putting in place advertisement, that's why you're putting in place a website and applications, and you are pushing co-branding content, etc., etc. There are plenty of tools now available in order to make yourself present your products on different devices and interact with people that are not your customers. And with this kind of people, you have to really take care of the personal data due to the fact that authorities could ask you to comply with the GDPR. So first of all, there's all this customer data, and leads data, but you have also more broadly, and we will go probably on that after, it's more the cyber security and the way you have awareness of your employees in order to take care of your IT, take care of the real core corporate data. So there are plenty of aspects of those tools are important.
Okay, now I will ask a question to Ian Campbell. Thank you for coming
Thank you for having me.
For us this evening. So I will just start presenting you. You're a teacher at Faculty of Law at Lyon Catholic University and at this program, Management, Digital Law and Management. You're also a contributor on Cyber Law for ComplianceJohnson.com, and you're also former solicitor in Northern Ireland. So I will ask you the same question: why and how to protect the data of your company? Why we should do that?
Well, the first reason, I suppose, is to protect, from a company's perspective, is to protect their business interest. There's clearly a number of reasons for doing that. Before we get into even the actual law, which obviously we will in great detail later, there's reputation, and there's your value within the market. I mean, if your company is on a newspaper headline, another data hack, which has happened for a number of large companies in recent times. I'm just looking at a list of some of the biggest data breaches in recent times. Google, now Google's probably big enough to be able to weather the storm, but a couple of companies really were indeed embarrassed. People like British Airways, who right now, just in the circumstances of the aviation industry right now with the pandemic, and we'll talk about that later in a moment. Also groups like Marriott International, the hoteliers. Once again, people aren't traveling very much, and when they do get the opportunity to travel again, those two names have been in their head for a bad reason, and obviously that's not good. So evidently there's reputational issues. Again, the reality is you're dealing with your customers, your clients. And if you're losing their data, well, obviously that could be, that's problematic for them. That's problematic for your customers, and it's not going to breed company loyalty or loyalty as a customer. From a legal perspective, I think as Sylvan's already mentioned, really, that the GDPR has moved things on. There was legislation in place in most countries previously, but it was never so comprehensive, and the fines in particular have grown somewhat enormously. And I think Caroline pointed it out. I think it's under Article 83 of the legislation. the maximum fine is either 20 million euros or 4% of the global turnover for the preceding financial year. Now, for companies like Google, like Marriott, etc., like British Airways, it's been the 4% figure, or at least approaching that, and that's really significant. You know, when you're talking 4% coming from a company like Google, it's an awful lot of money.
Yeah.
It's not something that they want to happen very often.
Okay, so you mean companies are making money from the data from another company?
No, I'm talking about the actual fines at the moment.
Okay, okay.
The actual fines, you know, the fine imposition. The other thing as well, you're correct in that they are making data. Are they making money from holding the data, if you like, through systems like pseudo-anonymization and anonymization and selling the data about particular demographics.
Okay.
But again, this ties back into if they lose reputation, it means they lose customers, and if they lose customers, they lose personal data.
Okay.
They don't have the same amounts of data next year as they were holding perhaps this year.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's all interconnected.
Okay, of course.
Yeah.
Just to add some points for what you said, very interesting. There is a real change of scale, just to let people understand. Before the fine with the CNIL, our authority, was about 100,000 euro. And it was not public. So it was a deal. Nobody knew. And now there is a real awareness based on a lot of data breaches that have been published in all the newspapers. There is no even 1 week without a big breach. You talked about those breaches from Marriott, and there were Equifax before. There have been Carrefour. So this is a new tool for the regulator. It's not only the fine, but the way you make it public. So, and maybe on a loyalty aspect, for sure, if you know that this company cannot protect your data, maybe you will look around. You will know, okay, there is Marriott, but there are also other brands, and maybe they are protecting my data much better than Marriott. So it means that, okay, it could impact the business now on the long way. So this is a real change of scale. But we are very, very far away from the 4% of turnover. So that's why people are pushing the regulators to go higher and higher on those fines.
There is also a question of cyber criminality. We heard about ransomware, data jacking. What's going on with the data? What's the point?
Well, if we get into cyber criminality, I mean, there's numerous types. Okay, I mean, you can start with things like, if you go all the way from things like harassment or abuse of speech, etc., things like that. I think we're going to ignore that today. That's not really our interest. Yes. You could go into other things like cyber extortion. One big example of that was maybe the Sony Pictures cases from a number of years ago, where basically they stole movies still in production and threatened to release them. It was blackmail, basically.
Blackmail, because of the data.
I think that they stole a product, if you like, put the products in data form.
Okay.
They stole the movie that hadn't yet been released. But again, that's maybe on the other side of things. When it comes to actual data, the hacking of data, I think the primary reason to do it is to obtain the details of others. Now that could be, the data can then be sold. Now it could be as simple as credit card details, which then can be used in credit card fraud. There are other more extreme examples. There's the Ashley Madison case, which was very unusual indeed, because they didn't demand anything other than they closed the website. I don't know if you're aware of what Ashley Madison is. I'm going to assume nobody here has signed up to it, but Ashley Madison was effectively a dating app for people who were actually married and wished to do everything discreetly. And
maybe you can give some names. There are websites in France, Adopt to Make, there are plenty of websites that probably our audience know them.
Tinder, this type of thing. But Ashley Madison was really quite particular, because this was its business model, that it was all to be done quite clandestine, and it was for people who simply wanted to remain married but to have an affair.
Yeah.
And they were hacked by a group who demanded simply that they close it, or they were going to release the data of the people who had signed up to the site. Now, why they did that, maybe they had a moral objection to it or something like that, but it was quite striking that they really did not seem to be standing to make any money of it whatsoever. So that's perhaps a particular example, but it does exist.
Okay, because there is data somewhere, common can take the command to control on that data.
Exactly, they take control.
And they can ask for money or just to stop the...
Or just to I think for some people it's true that to them it's possibly a game. This is their computer game, they have to hack a system that they want to do it. Now, those are possibly extreme examples. I think the day-to-day examples that companies are probably going to have to be aware of and protect themselves from are things like the malware and the ransomware attacks.
Okay, so...
And
to go back on this, Ashley Madison, this is because most of the time when I told you that upon this subject of privacy needs awareness and culture, and most of the time people are saying, oh, I don't have any risk, but so many people are on these apps, and some people which could access to this data blackmail people in the UK. And there are 2-3 persons that have been pushed to the suicide. So if I blackmail you and threaten you to release really in your intimacy, which is that you have a wife, you have a 2-3 second wife, I can blackmail you. Yes. And I can extort you money, but I can push you psychologically, really put you in danger. That are the risks. So it's not privacy, it's fun, but now it could be very risky if you are talking about...
It's a question of freedom.
It's a question of freedom, it's a question of privacy and the way you protect your data, your life.
Okay. I mean, I was free, to go on this website and to give my data.
Yes.
I was free to do whatever I want with my life. It's only me. And because there is this data collecting somewhere, there is some bad people, some bad companies who are taking the control. So finally, the company has to prevent other companies to abuse of the data and to protect myself. What you mean?
Yes, I mean that on this regulation, you will always focus on the person and try to figure out what could be the threat that you are receiving regarding a lack of protection of your data. So if someone that do not have the right to access your data accesses, he will know maybe sometimes not so interesting information like where you've been, but sometimes they will know where have you been, who you talked to, or where did you interact, or if you had an affair or not. So it could be all the things that was in the real life. Yes. Meeting with someone, talking with someone, nobody was recording, nothing.
Now it's
online. So,
recorded.
Because it's online, you have to protect as you had protected on the real life. And you will never, ever agree someone on your back. Write it down. Where have you been? Would you talk to? Why did you put this product on the shelf? Why did you wanted to buy it but you don't buy it? What, you've been to Carrefour and after that you've been to this store, and you interact with people and with the kind of message you're sending. So that's the digital life that you have right now.
The companies has to protect the data to comply with the RGPD and prevention to prevent from other companies to take the control on their data. So there is two objectives.
Yeah, that's why we another subject is assessment. You have to make what we call the privacy impact assessment. A privacy impact assessment is only a risk-based approach. So each time you will try to figure out if I got this kind of information, what could happen. So of course, if it's an information on your intimacy,
there's two levels there's two categories of data.
Yeah,
there's the personal data
and the specific special kind of
sensitive. Yeah, sensitive.
We call it sensitive data in France, données sensibles. because it's coming from the Loi Informatique et Liberté. But on the Article 9 of GDPR, which is the list of data that you are not allowed to collect by default. I mean, I don't have the right to collect your political opinion, your sexuality, what is really inside you, your intimacy. I don't have the right, but sometimes I have the right. For example, if I'm Ashley Madison, I want to help people who want to have an affair outside their family. Of course, I have to ask them what's your sexuality, but it's only on this particular.
When you go on Facebook or on LinkedIn or the social networks, you put everything from your private life. People are saying anything. We'll even say that to the students: be aware of what you're saying, of what you're posting.
Yeah. Because everything that is online could be recorded, could be copied, and could be reused, could go also on the dark web. So, of course,
The dark web.
the web that you are not accessing easily, that are accessed on different protocols securized to buy guns, to buy drugs, to exchange body and so on. So this is a dark web. On this dark web, you can buy personal data very easily. You can buy personal data sets. That's why a lot of companies tracking and scanning the dark web in order to alert the people concerned about changing their passwords. Be careful with so credit card number and so on. So if you know that your personal data is on the dark web, it means that someone is trying to selling your personal data. So it depends of the risk based on those data and the risk that you're going to face. But you can also, for example, if I just access your webmail, imagine. I'm thinking about Yahoo Mail because it's also a data breach that have been very famous. But there are problems of security and deployed, and there are security breach on their system. So you put your life on your webmail. I will know where you live. I will get your other passwords that you stored in your email. I will know everything. So imagine what I could do with that. Of course, if I'm the nicest people in the world, I won't do anything. But you have to try to figure out what I could do.
Okay.
That's why that's why also security is a really important issue on the GDPR, like ISO 27000 and so on. So what are the best practice to better securize your data? So for a company, it's not only to be compliant with the GDPR, but it could be also having the ability to better understand what are the data flows inside the corporation, which kind of people access which kind of information. I've got plenty of customers. I don't have so many customers that really know where is the data. We don't know. We collected data since 2000 in such amount of data, and we were in this myth that with the big data, we're going to reuse data in a way that you never imagined, and you're going to make money with data. Cannot make money now from. Now maybe it's a new era, and people, for a corporation point of view, you will have to really better manage your IT, better manage the data flows inside.
Yeah, I think it could potentially become a liability as well if you're holding on to data that you've no use for. What's the purpose of it?
Yeah.
It's just a liability. It's just something that people can hack, and I think the potential for that is probably just absolutely exploded over the last year, given the pandemic, the amount of people working from home, the amount of businesses that have gone quasi-online. Now, if you think, for example, of the brief period when the restaurants could reopen, it's all substituted paper menus for QR codes. And so going to a restaurant, something that you'd never think of as being a service that would use up data, has just completely gone down that route overnight. And it's difficult to quantify the sheer amount of data involved there. It gives me a headache thinking about it, really, but I don't think it's something that people have fully considered yet, and there were definitely a few hiccups at the time. I remember reading about a couple of cases in the UK where people entered a bar, again, brief period where the bars were open, and they had to leave contact details
Yes.
for tracing, and then they had a problem with this where there was one or two sleazy barmen were ringing up girls who had been in the bar, and no, I didn't give you my phone number for that, so, you know, but that was a GDPR breach. They had absolutely no right to do that. It was a total misuse of data. So, and again, these were just young guys, I should presume, working behind the bar part-time, but they didn't realise the consequences of what they were doing. It wasn't very gentlemanly, it was a little bit sneaky, but they didn't actually realise they were in breach of European data regulations.
Yes.
They had no idea. So I think that's an issue that a lot of companies are going to have to take that into account, that their staff need to be aware of what they're dealing with, and the fact that we all just 13 months ago took our work home with us.
Yes.
And we're all working on private machines for the most part. It's not even company-owned devices. People are working on their own computers, or there are multiple users using the same computer, and that's a risk, I think.
Yes, it is. Okay, thank you all for this nice discussion, for all this issue about data, personal data, our life, our freedom. And finally, what you're saying, it's a question of responsibility for the companies, because they are owning, they are collecting many data. So what they're doing with our data and with the data which are valuable.
Yeah, last word, just the last word for your students. We all have the right to access your data. We all have the right, and it's a free right, to ask your mayor, to ask every company you are interacting with. You use your right to access your data. It means that you just have to ask the DPO or any point of contact of this organization. So you can go to your mairie, to your town hall, or you can go to any counter of a company, and you use your right to access your data, and in a month, the company or the organization have to explain you which kind of data they are collecting and why they are collecting and how they are collecting, and if there is a transfer outside the EU. So it's a first step, very easy, but trying to better understand all the mechanisms which are based on your personal data.
Okay, so tonight I will go and ask to my DPO.
Yes.
My account.
And it makes business for me.
Okay, so this issue was very interesting and fascinating. So we go on talking about ethical issue, how behavior, how companies can go further to protect our personal data and their data. So this, and the change it means for all departments. So you see there are plenty of opportunities for careers where you can manage projects in all departments of the companies, all sectors, because the RGPD is for all companies today in Europe, and maybe in a few months, as you said, in a few years, other countries will also implement regulations such as GDPR. So we are all concerned by this necessity. So if you want to know more on that subject, if you want to become an expert on that issue, you can follow our program called Digital Law and Management, one of the few programs specialized on GDPR issues. Thank you very much. Good evening, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.